I'm Larry Loeser. I'm a small business consultant in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, and I had shoulder pain that dates back a dozen years or more and continued to get worse over that time period. And I researched it, talked to people, went to a couple of doctors over the years, and I became convinced, as they were, that I had the cartilage in my shoulder was deteriorating and that I'd have to have it replaced at some point. My father had his shoulder replaced, one of his shoulders. He needed to have two replaced, but he had it done in the early days of shoulder replacement, and it was very painful, and the recovery process was very long, and he decided not to have his second one done and kind of discouraged me from doing it. And then my pain got worse and worse, and the limitations became worse and worse, and I finally got referred to Dr. Wilson. It was pain. I've been a regular exerciser, and so in the gym I would have pain in certain exercises, and first it was not bad, and I could come home after working out and put ice on my shoulder and it'd be fine. And then the ice stopped helping, but I continued to work out. I never stopped exercising, which I think was good, and Dr. Wilson actually said that was good. And so pain when exercising, then the pain became more and more prevalent when I was doing work around the yard, shoveling, raking, digging. I'd get pain in my shoulder, and then I had limitations on how high I could reach with my arm. And toward the end, prior to my surgery, I couldn't unscrew a light bulb out of a socket. I couldn't reach up to do it. Even if I was on a ladder, I had to use my left hand. So I became better and better at using my left hand for things because of the pain in my right. Well, my initial thoughts were to put it off as long as possible. And my father really advised me to put it off more than not do it. Just put it off as long as you can. And that's what most professionals recommended, because there is some question about how long can a joint replacement last, how long before the parts wear out. I think especially back in the early days of replacing joints, the parts weren't meant to last as long. So that, and just the fear of surgery. I'd never had surgery before. I had a friend tell me I was a chicken, and so that got me mad, and that combined with the pain made me more and more willing to do it. And meeting Dr. Wilson and realizing how competent he was made me feel comfortable that, okay, this guy is the guy I want to use to do my surgery, and it's about time, so let's go ahead with it. I saw two others over the space of 10 years probably. And they all had the same general recommendation: put it off as long as you can. You'll know when it's time, that kind of advice. And Dr. Wilson felt the same way. He didn't push me, didn't recommend that I have surgery now, but he did emphasize that I was going to need surgery sometime to relieve my pain and limitations. He did a few basic tests on me just to see what my range of motion was. Reach up, shake my hand, push your hands together against mine, pull them apart. And he heard my story as I told him. I told him I'd been x-rayed before by prior surgeons, and he understood exactly where I was. So he said, sounds to me like you're going to need a replacement. And what we would do is to have an x-ray done and to confirm what you're telling me. And so we did that. I went back to him and he said, yes, your cartilage is mostly gone in your shoulder. So he left it in my ballpark, and I said, well, let's go ahead. I think I'm ready at this point. He had me come back in and have an MRI so they could get a more detailed look at my shoulder. and make sure that my rotator cuff was intact and strong. That's, as I've learned working with Dr. Wilson, that's a critical thing, and that determines what kind of shoulder replacement you're going to have. There are 2 different types of shoulder replacements. Dr. Wilson prepared me by telling me what the process is, and he was very clear and to the point, and I had a pretty good idea beforehand, having thought about this, read about it, visited other physicians, talked to people who've gone through it. So I knew generally what to expect, but he confirmed and added some information. And he did say that I think you'll probably be happy with the results. And that simple statement meant a lot to me coming from him. My shoulder deterioration limited many of my activities. It didn't eliminate too many of them, but it limited me. I'm very active, and I have a wife and 2 sons, and loved playing sports with the sons. And one of the early things that I started to limit me is we used to like to play catch with a baseball. And throwing a ball, anybody who's got a shoulder problem knows that's very hard to do. And so I eventually couldn't throw a baseball anymore. I could catch it, of course, with my left hand, but I couldn't throw it. I couldn't throw a rock out of the yard unless it was underhanded. And so that was a pretty big sign to me. I play guitar just for my own pleasure, and after maybe 5 minutes of playing, having my arm out over the guitar, my shoulder would get very, very sore, and that would actually limit my playing and make me think twice about doing something that I really enjoyed. I have a German Shepherd, and she likes to play Frisbee, and so throwing the Frisbee, that became harder and harder. And then working around the house and around the yard, working over my head became impossible. I couldn't paint a ceiling. I couldn't unscrew a light bulb. And those are some of the kind of things that really were driving me towards surgery. Dr. Wilson was excellent in explaining what was going to happen, but there's so many things that no one person can go through all of it with you. So gather as much information as you can from people who've had prior surgeries. And do as much reading as you can, so you'll know some of the particulars. The fine points are kind of important, like sleep. Dr. Wilson said that I would want to make some adjustments in the early weeks to sleep, and I might want to have a recliner. But he didn't tell me to get a recliner, and he shouldn't. But talking to other people, friends said, "Oh yes, you need to get a recliner." I'm sitting in it right now, and I've never owned a recliner before. But it's really helpful because you can't sleep on your back in the early weeks. The pain of your shoulder pressing out pulls on the incision, and so you have to kind of sit up fairly straight when you're sleeping. So you really don't sleep. You just kind of nap during the night, and that's one of the biggest negatives of the surgery. For 3-4 weeks, you're not going to get good sleep. The big day was almost nothing. I showed up at the hospital. Emerge Ortho has a beautiful hospital in North Durham, and my wife and I were super impressed by the facility, the people there. They make you very comfortable, and they put me through the pre-op routine. I met the anesthetist, if that's how you say it, and he was excellent. He explained exactly what was going to happen to me, and they put me out. I went through surgery, woke up, and they put a nerve block on your shoulder and your arm, so you're not going to feel anything when you wake up. So, it was good. I was groggy from surgery, but the whole process, the surgery process, was great. And the stay in the hospital was good. The nerve block lasted for 3 days, so my shoulder was still numb when I came home. Miraculously, once it wore off, I didn't have any pain in the shoulder. If I moved it, too much or in the wrong way, I would have pain, but just in a stable state, I had no pain, and that I think is somewhat unusual. And I really didn't use pain medication. I had it available to me, but I didn't use it. My wife was a huge help. She she did everything for me. But you're in a sling that's has your arm held out from your body, and it's very restricted. So you just have to figure out how to move around with that, how to sit down. And I was very nervous about doing the wrong thing with my shoulder. So going up and down stairs, you wouldn't think that would be a part of shoulder surgery, but that's a scary thing. Because you know, and you're told if you fall or hit your shoulder, you could really damage the surgery. So, and I'm, right hand going downstairs, I'm normally using the railing with my right hand, so I had to use my left hand, take it one stair at a time, find a place, chairs to sit in that were had room for my arm. I had to start eating with my left hand. I had to start brushing my teeth with my left hand. Very limited in my showering. My wife helped me, fortunately, and just everything. It was wonderful to have some assistance. I was told, and it's generally been true for me, it's 3 months before you can really effectively start using your shoulder. But the sling comes off after 6 weeks, so that's really exciting. You can't really use your shoulder at that point, but you can move your arm, and you can, put on a shirt, a regular shirt, and that kind of thing. So that's pretty exciting. 3 months, you're starting to use your arm. I'm at about 5 months now, I guess, and my arm is fully functional. I don't limit myself at all. I try to watch what I do, try not to pick up anything too heavy, but it's amazing to me that I'm pretty fully functional. I can do all the things I was afraid I might not be able to do at this point. And my physical therapist says most people lose the idea that they have a handicap by the end of a year. But so it can take that long before you're not conscious of your shoulder. I have returned to all my activities, even before the 5-month mark. Probably by 4 months, I had returned to all my activities. My post-op activities were limited at first. As I said, I had to use my left hand, of course, for everything. But on the day after I came home, my wife and I went for a 2-mile walk, and that was really great, just to get out, get some air. And so I was able to walk, and we used that as our main means of exercise at first. And until you get out of the sling, you are limited in what you can do with your arm. You can use a computer keyboard, even though your arm's in a sling. You just kind of swing your hand around and do that. You can write a little bit with your right hand, so I'm a small business consultant, and that was very important to me. So I could do that, after 2 weeks, I would say. I don't think there are great resources. The internet, of course, has videos, homemade videos, and those are somewhat useful to look at. And there are papers, medical papers that you can read that are out on the internet. I think finding a physician that you respect and trust, as I did with Dr. Wilson, is really important. And Dr. Wilson has answered any questions that I've had, and will spend as much time as necessary. He makes himself personally available, which I think is highly unusual for a physician. Well, for anyone who's thinking about going through shoulder replacement surgery and that's been recommended to them, I would say you'll know when it's time for you to do it. And I would say to wait as long as you can. That's highly subjective, but you'll know when your limitations are substantial enough that you just can't operate. You're not operating and you're not living your life the way you want to. And make sure that you find a physician that you know and trust, and use that physician as a resource to answer your questions. And once you get all the questions answered, you'll feel more comfortable, and then you'll know, based on your limitations, when it's time. And don't be afraid of it once you get to that time. It's a wonderful thing once it happens. Once you get over that hurdle of the time being right and getting your answers to all your questions. You'll be so happy once you do it.